Okay, now that we're sure that everything is exactly where it needs to be, we can go ahead and disassemble. And what we'll want to do is go ahead and take everything completely off and kind of start working backwards from the way that I installed so far. So we'll take the Fishfinder off, set it aside, take the rod mount holder apart, and actually I'm going to go ahead and take this completely out. And what we will do is we will start with these back 3 screws, and we'll access through the front hole. You can basically reach in, and I'll be able to put the nuts on, locking wash nuts, and hold this in place. Of course, I'll put some sealant on each of the screws as I put those in. Okay, so I basically have put some of this sealant on each of the screws, and then I had to put 3 washers on each of the 3 screws underneath to shim between the kayak and the mount for the Fishfinder. So now, just to seal it one more time, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of goop on each of these heads, and then reach up through the kayak and screw each of these on. So, and then just make sure they're tight and they will lock in place. Alright, now I'm just going to repeat the same process with my stainless steel bolts and washers for the fish rod holder. But basically, as I said before, I want to shim up the back side as to not pinch these wires. So what I'm going to do is cut out a little piece of sponge to put in here, and then I'll coat it with sealant to make sure that it's watertight. And then I'm going to put 3 washers on the bottom side of this screw, or this bolt, to kind of shim it up a little bit on the back, and then I'll just have it flush in the front. So just go back and take the same attachment that we did before to drill the hole, and actually cut it into the sponge, which I've already done. And what that will do is give us a plug that we can push in here, and what we'll do is go ahead and put sealant on both sides to keep it water sealed around here, but it just gives us a little extra protection against water getting down into the watertight cavity. So as you can see, I've got goop pretty much all over the bottom seal of this. I've actually put the 3 washers on the back side. I'm going to seal the top of these as well, and I'll just wipe off the excess with a paper towel. And then last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and seal around all of the sponge here to get a nice good seal. I'll even seal up where the wires are. Now I've basically coated the whole bottom of this, and then I will coat where the holes are as well. Set this down for a second. And this is kind of, the sponge is up a little bit, so whenever I press it down, it will push down and get a nice good seal there. There we go. So now just make sure my washers are at the back. I've pre-measured my cable out. Push it in, and we are good to go. One additional step I'm going to take on the front 2 bolts as well is, once I put in the power supply to run the Fishfinder, I'll need a place to actually strap it to inside of the hull here. So what I'm going to do before I put the nuts on, I'm going to put a couple of these hook straps in place, and what that will do is it'll give me an anchor point to actually tie the power supply and the wet bag to. So you can do that as well if you're going to run the power supply up in the hull. Okay, so we've got the 4 bolts in place now with the washers for the fish mount rod. And as you can see, the cable is still flexible. It's not being pinched. I can actually pull some out even now if I wanted to. But in the top of this, I don't think you can really see with very much light there, but you can actually see the sponge down in there. So what I'm going to do now is put a little bit of additional sealant in the top part, down in where the sponge is, and then I'm also going to fill in sealant around here, as well as the same spot on the front. That's just to make sure that no water gets down inside where the power supply is going to be. And then also you can see underneath exactly what the mounting looks like below. And with the J-hooks in place, I'll be able to push the 12-volt battery down between the slotted area in the middle, and then tie it up to the J-hooks up at the top. Alright, as you can see, we got the sealant in the front where we've got the convex lip there. We've also put a bunch of sealant down inside, and then of course up on the front as well. So now we'll just assemble it, put it in place, and let everything dry. So there you go, you got your fish finder in place, got the rod holder in place. We'll let the sealant dry overnight, make sure that that sets up good, and then we will put in the transducer and the power supply.